It is another day of jams. Vens Team Sports. It's a collaboration that I do with my pal Theo. It's up on Spotify streaming now. That's what we did this whole past month. Every time that I work on this Vens stuff, I'm reminded how specific it is, and by proxy, how simple it is. The tempos, the rhythms, the scales, they're all very limited. They're all very nailed down. And you would think that would be very limiting in terms of your creativity, but it's actually the complete opposite. Hey, I'm the Bun, that 50-year-old baritone guy from the internet. We are here to figure out how to earn a living as a solo artist in super niche music in 2022. And we're going for it despite challenges like Asperger's, mere movement, or average musical skill. Where am I at? And where am I going? Being intentional and specific has had a major impact on my output. A quick example is I used to think of myself as just a musician. I mean, I use instruments to do what I do, but only enough to turn an idea into reality. Turning musical ideas into reality is what I'm most interested in. Which focus is best suited to my interests? Musician or producer? As a musician, the concern is more with playing and developing on an instrument. As a composer, arranger, and producer, the concerns are more with the intricacies in developing a body of musical work for a specific purpose. These days, my perspective is that of a composer, arranger, and producer. This shift in thinking has had a major effect on the way that I view the world and what is possible. Two very different mindsets and two different paths with different end results. This was huge for me creating more music more intentionally. What is the purpose? My goal is to forge a full-time career producing heavy niche music without any clients. Currently, the experiment to achieve this is to produce and release in-house projects developed by Bun and Bun Collaborations. The structure of this experiment operates half as a production company and half as a record label. And in order to make it all work, we will have to create a lot of music. A lot of music is rad because that's exactly what a full-time composer, arranger, and producer does. And that's exactly what the Bun wants to do with his life. So why so many projects? Vens, foreigns, and wetlands. Multiple projects allow us to release new material every month and not wear out core listeners. Listeners in the Bun universe are specific for each project. There are very few listeners that are shared between the three projects. Let's break down the Vens material to demonstrate what I'm talking about, and we'll compare that very quickly with the wetlands and foreigns material. Project specifications. What are they? Things that make Vens what it is, and also define Vens to be different than the other two projects and different than all the other music out there. Kind of a tough thing to do, but definitely a thing to shoot for. Number one, the vibe. What is going on with the vibe with Vens? It is sludgy, angular riffs over blasting, grinding beats. Number two is vocals. Show up! You're good! I'm not a bully! Vens has vocals. The other two projects do not have vocals. They may have vocals in the future, but at this time, they do not have vocals. The melodic system. Vens uses a symmetrical system called the diminished system. It is very nervous sounding because it never really resolves, and that really kind of helps Vens sound the way it does, which is nervous and anxious and crazy all the time. The feel of Vens is all based around double kicks and blast beats. The tempo is always 200 BPM. Always, always, never not 200 BPM. The Vens tunings, all three projects are different tunings. Vens is an A1 standard for the guitars and a 0 standard for the bass. The tones are different across all three projects, and Vens is no exception. It is a sandy, gritty, kind of uncomfortable sound. It is not a typical metal sound. If you listen to the guitars by themselves, they're not okay. The last bit is rules. I set rules, do's and don'ts. And with Vens, the first thing is no fast guitars. You'll never hear tremolo picking or any kind of fast guitars ever in Vens. It's slow guitars over fast beats. That's the whole thing. Rule number two is the blast beats are only scissor blast beats. There's no other sort of metal sounding blast beats. It's a more punk kind of sounding blast beat. And they're usually in some version of a 3 count or a 3 feel. And the final rule for Vens is no fifths, no power chords. I'll put the specs for all 3 projects up on the screen, and you can pause that and compare them just to kind of get an idea of what's going on, and maybe that would be helpful to something you're doing. A really cool example of simple, specific rules leading to an incredible amount of output is RGB, which is red, green, blue. All of our displays work this way. They use 3 colors, and out of those 3 colors, it makes like 16,777,000 colors. Let's get an alternate perspective and see what Lucas Weisbrod has to say. Lucas is from Argentina and is the human behind Mostro, Monovoth, and Hail the Invisibles. Hello, Lucas.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
I am super good. Seeing as you do something very similar to me, I'd like to get your ideas on it. Number 1 question is, why do multiple projects? What's your reasoning?
One, it's time. You have the time to do it. You have the will to have a different artistic approach to something that you cannot do in your initial project, and different drives. Like, I don't know, for example, Hail the Invisibles is a super punk grindcore thing with a specific aesthetic, but I don't know, Monovoth is completely different artwork, different music.
How does the emotional approach differ from one to the next?
Specifically in instrumental metal or music in general, like you don't have the voice telling you the feeling itself, you know, so you have to transmit that feeling and that emotion sonically. I think I tapped really into that with Monovoth. Like Monovoth, it turned out to be a super like mellow and sad doom metal project, you know, while Mostro, I don't know, emotionally it never told me much, at least to me. Mostro was all about the drive of doing something weird. Hail the Invisibles is more about, I don't know, aggression and just punk attitude.
How do you make sure the differences stay in check?
It's like a suit. In a way, like I get in the Monovoth suit and I go to metal, I get in the Mostro suit and I go weird. I get in the Hail the Invisible suit and I go punk and grindcore. I can't write freely. I have to have an agenda, you know? Like, I know what I'm aiming for when I start writing.
Some folks still won't get it. At the moment, people on the outside will have an incomplete view of things. There are still a lot of missing parts to this proposed format. We don't even know if it's gonna work at all. Now that the Vens EP is out, we can focus on infrastructure and community for a little bit. If you're curious about the Wetlands and Vens production methods, we're gonna be doing a live stream about the production breakdowns for each of those releases. Those streams will be direct to members in the Bun Patreon and YouTube member communities. In the next one, we're actually gonna be talking about money and revenue streams for music artists. A lot of music people really hate money, so I can't wait to share what I've discovered with all of that. I'll see you then.